Over 40 years of rallycross action at Lydden Hill. We're going to look at the retro rallycross featuring historic motors from yesteryears. The first heats got underway. Rob Gibson led the pack into the first corner after an impressive start, but Lance Foster in his Leyland Mini was the first casualty. Grzegorz Kalinecki suffered problems in his Integrale and was forced into retirement early. But up at the front, a fierce battle developed between Ray Morgan in his Escort and Gibson at the wheel of the 6R4. And even through the harsh weather conditions, this battle continued. Through the mist and spray, though, came the recovering Lance Foster. Right at the end of the heat, a fantastic manoeuvre saw him get to the checkered flag first. The weather improved slightly for the second heats, but when the lights went out, the problems continued for Grzegorz Kalinecki. He was left sitting on the start line as the rest of the cars thundered around the first corner. Barry Stewart was to suffer problems in his stunning Porsche 911 and would end the heat as a spectator. Meanwhile, Grzegorz Kalinecki managed to get the Lancia fired up and started to make some progress until a moment at the top of the hill saw him lose control and spin out. And this time it was Ray Morgan who scrambled through to the finish line first, just ahead of the Mini of Lance Foster. In the third heat, history seemed to repeat itself as Kalinecki was left once again on the start line. The weather had improved, but the drivers were still struggling to keep these beasts tame. Rob Gibson, in particular, seemed to be struggling in these very tricky conditions. It wasn't long, though, before the drama started. Barry Stewart lost control of the 911, and Rob Gibson was forced to take avoiding action. Undeterred by this, though, Gibson managed to get his head down and get to the line ahead of the rest of the pack. And so, with a win and 2 seconds in the heats, it's Ray Morgan who lines up on pole position for the A final. Lance Foster sits in second spot in his Mini, and in third is the iconic rallycross car of the 80s, the 6R4. So Lance Foster in the very distinctive green and white, literally green and white, Mini, alongside that car of Rob Gibson. Remember that car back in the day in the hands of guys like Will Gollop. The car was designed by Patrick Head, with Williams Formula One fame, of course, back in the day. So let's see, though, what Rob Gibson can do with that machine today. You can see the Lance Foster Mini alongside him. So it's Morgan, Foster and Gibson on the front row. Stewart, Biaggi. And then at the back of the grid, you've got Kalinecki and Mark Griffin in the Fiesta, but a brilliant start from Barry Stewart in the Porsche, using all of the traction of the 911 to get down the inside of Lance Foster's Mini. But Ray Morgan, the pole man, gets the best of the starts, uses his pole position well, and Foster and Stewart make contact. And around goes Barry Stewart, frustration. He sits there patiently waiting for the pack to go through. Meanwhile, the battles continue. Kalinecki getting around the outside of Biaggi. Griffin in the mix as well, and look at Rob Gibson really struggling on that first lap. So let's take another look at that first corner incident between Stewart and Foster. Initially it looks like maybe Stewart just gets into the back of Morgan. I don't think that was the case, but here as Foster cuts back, as Stewart gets sideways at the same point, 2 into 1 won't go. He's very lucky not to be collected by the rest of that angry pack coming through. Meanwhile, this battle at the front is very, very furious between Morgan and Foster. Foster taking the long route round the outside of the hairpin. And is there a bit of contact there? Well, certainly there's definitely some contact there. Round goes Foster. Morgan checks up. Look at Kalinecki coming round the outside now. He's had an overtake under yellow flags. Well, to be fair to him, I don't think he really had an awful lot of choice other than to perhaps stop altogether, which was never going to happen. Lance Foster, the man from the northeast of England, It's a big old drive down here to Lydden Hill. It's about as far as you could get, really, in terms of racetracks. Problem for Morgan. Well, this man was victorious in one of the events last year. Not going to be his day today, the pole man out of it. And that's Kalinecki with a problem. That means that Lance Foster, despite the spin that we've just seen, looks like he's going to be leading the race. Real frustration for Grzegorz Kalinecki, another man who took victory in one of the events last year. And certainly that Integrale is quick enough, but obviously not his day now. Let's have another look at what happened between Morgan and Foster earlier on. Look at this, side by side, sideways from Foster, sideways from Morgan. They get into each other. And look at that for a recovery. It's like the Italian job. What a brilliant piece of driving by Lance Foster. Gets himself back into action. Kalinecki, obviously his lead was to be short-lived with that technical problem here. You can see Kalinecki going into the right-hander at the first corner. And as he comes out, the car just appears to just lose power altogether. Looks maybe like something like an electrical problem or a drive issue, who knows. But Foster does well to avoid the back of the Lancia, to be fair. Meanwhile, Lance Foster now pushing very, very hard, and pushing even harder, arguably, is Rob Gibson after that very difficult first lap. A man who has been synonymous with the 6R4 over its years of competition, loving this championship. His wife is very much heavily involved, as Rob is, in promoting this series. Now, it is a series rather than a championship. In other words, all the races are standalone. It's not about championship points, it's about the glory of each individual event. And at the moment, it's this lovely little green and white Mini. Lance Foster looking so calm and controlled at the head of the pack, but he's under pressure. Kalinecki steps away from the car, based in Ireland, even though a very non-Irish name for Grzegorz Kalinecki. And there is the 6R4 closing down on Foster. That extra power surely counting for Gibson. That and some very skillful driving. Look at how hard he is on the brakes there, just carrying so much speed into the hairpin. And this is going to be very, very tight towards the end of this race. Lance Foster doing a brilliant defensive job there, gets across to the inside and blocks Gibson. He's going to hold the inside line. You can see that Mini bouncing around through the final section of the lap. Is he going to be able to do enough to keep Rob Gibson behind him? We'll find out very, very soon. It's going to be an absolute fierce battle to the end. Couldn't get two more diverse cars if you tried. Both got great heritage in the sport. Malcolm Wilson rallying this car back in the day, the 6R4 that is. Interesting to see that Foster seemed to get really good drive out of the right-hander there as you go into the left-hander at the devil's elbow. This is where Gibson looked very strong, using all of the power up the hill. Is he going to get momentum? Now look at that, Foster defending once again, as he's got every right to do as the race leader. Well, the man from Tyne Weir has got a long drive back home, but is he going to be able to take a winner's trophy with him? Or will it be second place? Or is it going to be something else? Gibson trying the long way round. That's going to be a very, very difficult move to pull off. And it looks like Foster is going to have done enough, or is he? Side by side through the last corner, going through the chicane as they cross the line. It is Lance Foster who wins. Fantastic performance from the Mini driver. As we see Mark Griffin bringing the Haynes of Maidstone Ford Fiesta into the last couple of corners. He's driven a solid race, but the star of the show has been this man, Lance Foster. What a performance by him, an absolutely outstanding drive. Despite the spin, he manages to take victory. And frustration for Kalinecki, still forlornly looking at that car. Hopefully he'll be back out fighting next time we see these guys in action. So that's what it was. Foster by just 0.79 of a second ahead of Gibson, Ian Biaggi, and then unfortunately Kalinecki, Stewart and Morgan not finishing this event.
That has to be one of the most fun races I think I've ever watched. What was it like to drive it?
I think it was one of the most fun races I've ever been in my entire life. Yeah. A full 360 down the hill and come back with it in first place. I'm shocked, yeah.
That was showboating.
Yeah, probably. I like to entertain the crowd a bit, shall we say.
Talk me through it. What was going through your mind? Because you probably didn't hear this, but you got a full round of applause all the way around the track.
I was quite surprised. I came back in, the amount of people who were clapping at us, but when the car went sideways, I don't know, I put it back in the first gear, and as soon as it started pointing the right way again, just accelerated, it pulled itself square and sort of hammer down, head down, off it went.
And never mind that moment, it was one of the most incredible pieces of defensive driving I've seen at the end there. You just wouldn't let him through.
No, it's 6R4. I always wanted one as a child. And I've just
Didn't you chuck it down into first gear?
Yes, at one point I did, yeah, just to slow him down a bit, trying to block him for the corner. But no, excellent, really pleased.
There was just no way through, was there?
No way through, and the track's that slippy and slimy. I heard the Mini was going backwards down the hill at one time, which I missed. But I was watching what he was doing. He was all over the place, and so we've got to be careful.
Have you ever been in a race like that before?
Oh, many a way. Right, yes, definitely, yeah. But it was very slippy and very greasy now. So you've got to be careful.
That's just British Rallycross at its best, isn't it?
It could be, yeah. It could be, yeah. But I got filled in on the first corner, so I couldn't really see what was happening. But